my channel. I'm the Spellsinger, and this is my ongoing review of a series of gamebooks known as Fighting Fantasy. And in this review, I'm going to give you a quick look at this title with its book number. I'll read the blurb, we'll check out the plot, look at the locations, talk about some of the game mechanics and the adventure sheet. We'll look at the artwork, and then I'll talk about some of my own likes and dislikes, some fun facts, any errors, a summary and score, and I'll finish on a shout out. So, this is book 43. This is Keep of the Lich Lord. This came out in 1990, and it was written by Dave Morris and Jamie Thompson. Now, obviously, Dave Morris is synonymous with all those nightmare game books, but he also wrote Heart of Ice, which is considered by many to be one of the best game books ever. And of course, Jamie Thompson worked with Mark Smith on that Way of the Tiger series that I reviewed a way back. So you've got two really good, strong authors working together on this game book. Now this cover here, this was by David Gallagher, which is really cool. And there's also this strange Fabled Lands cover here as well, which was by Kevin Jenkins. But all the internal artwork for this book was by David Gallagher as well. So we've got David Gallagher doing the cover and obviously all the illustrations as well. Right, let's read the blurb for Keep of the Lich Lord. So it says here, Lord Mortis has risen. Clawing his way back from the grave, the foul Lich Lord has once again set the sights on the Arrowhead Islands. Allying himself with the Chaos Pirate of Blood Island, he threatens to bring the Varadian Alliance under the cruel domination of his undead armies. They have already taken Bloodrise Keep, a point in the defence of the islands, and soon nothing will stand between Mortis and victory. A cunning and fearless warrior is needed for a vital mission to enter Bloodrise Keep and overthrow Lord Mortis, a warrior like you. So, that's the blurb. Okay, let's talk about the plot, and then we'll look at where all this happens location-wise in Titan. So, an undead knight has escaped from his crypt and overrun this castle, the Arrowhead Islands, which is just east of the continent of Cool, from where he plans to begin a campaign of conquest with his army of undead zombies. You are set the task of assassinating this Lich Lord undead king and rid Staining Island, which is where all this is happening, of his undead necromancer. Now, Lord Mortis, who has been accidentally reanimated after 200 years of lying dormant, has already taken the northern part of this island, based around Bloodrise Keep, and you're this mercenary, sort of hired to kill him off. So there's a subplot where these Chaos Pirates are working with Mortis to enslave the locals, to make capturing the island that much easier. So you discover a sort of elven resistance as well, movement that's going on, and you also have to deal with a traitor situation. So there's all these interesting plots all woven into the main objective of this game, so there's a lot going on. So this is kind of a logical yet multi-layered kind of premise, and it gains extra credence from all the encounters that show up. As the island is being overrun with undead, most of what you meet is exactly that. And this is what you would anticipate from, the restrictive environment of an island, essentially. There are people in the south who can help you, but the further north you go, the more vicious and dangerous your foes will become. And in terms of location, we are in Titan. So as you can see from this map of Titan, we've got the three continents as usual, Alancia, Cool, and the Old World. Now, in this one, we're just off the east of Cool. And you can see here the Arrowhead Islands. Now, if you look at this cool little map by Leo Hartas here, this is Staining Island. So you can see Silport, in the which is where you begin, sort of on the west of the island. And then here is Bloodrise Keep. And that's where you're heading. So that's where all this is going on. Cool little islands of Arrowhead. Right, so the game mechanics and the adventure sheet for this book. So a new attribute in this one is called Resolve, which determines if you are paralysed by panic. when you encounter these kind of undead creatures. And this is a 1d6 plus 5 roll, and you're asked to kind of test your resolve, like in a very similar fashion as if you were testing your luck. And while generally fair, it can sometimes be too easy to avoid the difficult combats. I certainly found that. The resolve score can fluctuate, sort of dropping as low as 2 and rising as high as 12. And as a normal, initial values cannot be exceeded, so standard fare. And if you manage to penetrate Bloodrise Keep, then the alarm value, which is another cool little attribute, comes into play. And this begins at 0, and it can increase or decrease depending on your actions, as you're making your way through Bloodrise Keep. And it represents the amount of noise you're making, kind of disturbance created by you, within this kind of fortress. The resolve mechanic is quite similar to previous fighting fantasy mechanics such as fear, faith, willpower, and it's your ability to hold fast, when you're faced with those undead creatures. And as resolve tests are fairly common, it won't take very long to reach a resolve of 12, which makes any further rolls against it kind of redundant, and therefore it takes away some of the element of terror and uncertainty when you're faced with these undead creatures. The second new stat, that alarm value, this only comes into play once you have reached Bloodrise Keep. And it kind of tracks how much unwanted attention you're drawing to yourself. A good idea in principle, but especially as the undead in this adventure kind of sort of collective conscious that they all die, if their leader falls. But it's highly unlikely that your alarm value will increase enough to cause you any real problems. These stats were evidently designed to sort of add a sense of foreboding in the environment and a sense of care and urgency to sort of your actions, make yourself as careful as possible. But they are both so easy to survive that they're kind of rendered almost like useless. But it's nice to have something a little bit different thrown in there. Now, everything else is pretty straightforward, but the adventure sheet here, you can see, is also quite familiar. You've got your skill, your stamina, and your luck. You've got a place for your treasure. You can pick up a lot of gold in these books, buy stuff. You've got your provisions as normal. You've got your equipment list. There's not too many items, but those there are quite important. One of the items you'll get at the start is the Ring of Communing. And this will kind of allow you to seek information 3 times throughout this adventure, get advice from those that sent you. So that's quite a cool little mechanic. And then you've got your notes as well. So any kind of riddles or clues that you might pick up can go in there. Now you will note that there isn't anywhere for your resolve or alarm, which is a little bit odd. So I just stuck them in the notes. Right, the artwork in Keep of the Lich Lord. So this colour map that you can see here, the front cover, that was by Leo Hartness, as always, doing a great job showing us exactly where we are in the Arrowhead Islands. But the original cover of the book was designed and illustrated by David Gallagher, as I say, and many of the illustrations, strangely, are not presented next to the paragraph that they relate to. So, if you're familiar with these books, you'll usually find that when you get to a certain reference, if there is an image to go with it, a piece of art, then it's usually on the next side. So you can actually read the reference and see the image at the same time, but not so in this book. Not always, but just occasionally. So that's a bit odd. But yeah, a book with, such well-rendered atmosphere and theme kind of needs the art that's equal to David Gallagher's talent. So all those internal drawings are very dark and in keeping with the prose and with the narrative. A lot of the illustrations of the monsters are very stark, lots of white backgrounds and lots of shadowy foregrounds, and kind of all makes everything seem much more horrific. And there's a kind of intensity to a lot of these illustrations. It kind of suits the book nicely. The cover is curious, like I mentioned. It kind of shows Lord Mortis there, huge figure dominating his hordes, which is quite subtle yet strangely appropriate. I quite like the cover. But all in all, yeah, the artwork is tip-top. And as always, I've got a fave picture, which is this one here. This is the Skull Beast. And let me read to you the reference that goes with this. I do like this picture. You know, you've got the kind of like this, I don't know, it's like a skull beetle with these tentacles coming out of its mouth, and it just really jumps out of the page at me. But this is what it says. You slip into the well, then poke your head out over the top as a hideous-looking creature scuttles around the corner into the plaza. More than anything else, it looks like a giant skull with a myriad insect-like legs. And instead of a chitin, these legs are made of skeletal bone. Several long, sinuous, tentacled tongues rasp and writhe from the grinning jaws, reaching for you, trying to grab you and draw you towards its snapping jaws. You recognise the legendary Skull Beast, a creature that lives in the lands of the dead, and which comes to Titan only when summoned by an evil and powerful necromancer like Mortis. Yeah, I do like Gallagher's artwork. Yeah, so that's my fave. Okay, I've got some likes and dislikes as well, though. So the book kind of moves away from the typical find that key, find that right path kind of trope that a lot of these fighting fantasy books held on to, kind of allowing you to tackle the challenge through lots of varied approaches, lots of different paths. I like that kind of dark, foreboding tone with the well-constructed gamecraft and all these immersive environments that you'll find in this gamebook. I love all that non-player character action as well, all the optional side quests of this adventure, and it kind of makes it really come alive for me. And it's through this vivid writing of the two authors that, combined with obviously all the artwork, makes it really worthwhile and makes you kind of want to play through it and find out as much as you can about this island and explore the different places that are open to you, all the different aspects. Everywhere you go in this one, there is a kind of game within a game for you to play, be it vampire hunting, or ridding a village of a bizarre beast, or just foiling these pirates, these slave ring that's shown up. Now, admittedly, it is one of the easier books to finish, but it's not a dislike, more of an observation. It is an easy book. I think I did it on my second go, and that's only because I stumbled on an instant death right at the end. So some fun facts for you. There's an interview with Dave Morris, which I'm going to read out to you. So this is how the interview goes. It says here, I submitted several story proposals along with Jamie Thompson, my co-author, and this was the one they liked. I don't think it was the strongest one. I'd have rather done Keeper of the Seven Keys. The manuscript got sent back to Mark Gascoigne because there were too many cuts and paste sections, including about 50 paragraphs spent searching a cemetery. I agreed with Mark. Those bits were tedious. I rewrote a big chunk of the book, and I'm happy to have my name on the finished version. The original manuscript for Keep of the Lich Lord was heavily cut at Mark's request, and then I added extra stuff until it was up to length. So we could have had a completely different book, potentially. But I'm glad they went with this one. The book also includes a reference to some of Jamie Thompson's earlier work, Sword of the Samurai. Some of you that have read that book in the Fighting Fantasy series, at the beginning of this adventure, you come across this inn, and it's called Sword of the Samurai. So that's quite a nice little nod to his previous work with Mark Smith. There's also an iOS conversion of the book that was produced by Megara Entertainment. I think that was released back in 2012. So if you like that kind of thing, might be something worth looking into. Now, there's a couple of errors I might mention for this entry. The Arrowhead Islands and the Varadian Alliance are sometimes referred to as the Delphic Islands and Alliance, sort of hinting at some name changes. So maybe in that little speech I gave from Dave Morris, that might refer to some of those changes that he had to make. So there may be some consistency that was maybe left out, while he was going through those changes. The innkeeper at this Sword of the Samurai pub, he charges you for 1 gold piece for a meal and some stew and a room, but he never brings you the stew. Just get the room. Now, reference 94 says Port Borgos, is west, but on the map it's more sort of northeast. Now, you may lose your weapon in this book on reference 175 or 234, but nothing is said about any consequences, no skill deficit or anything like that. It's just not mentioned. So I guess just play on. One of the encounters in which you can use the charm of disruption, which is a really cool item you can get, is in fact not on the path where you get the charm, which means that references 69 and 279 are kind of impossible to reach. And there's one last thing, there's a continuity error regarding the background. So you're told you start your adventure at Port Vanel, but in reference 400, right at the end, you're told you receive a hero's welcome at Port Canthos. So yeah, just a continuity thing, nothing to get a twist about. Right, let's do a summary and a score for Keep of the Lich Lord. This gamebook is highly regarded as a decent and enjoyable entry in the series, offering a classic kind of fantasy quest with lots of good exploration, though it is often considered easier to complete than a lot of the others. It stands out for its well-structured, kind of non-linear and atmospheric path. It is considered on the easier side, like I say, in that series of fighting fantasy books, but it does allow for a lot of exploration without sort of the constant fear of surprise death or instant deaths. However, it can be made more challenging by trying to visit, every location, because there's a lot of places on this island that you can just explore and check out, because you don't have to. If you want to make a beeline for the keep, then the structure, and avoid all those optional side quests and just take that single path, you might find that you skip a lot of stuff. It'll be easier and quicker, but it will skip a lot of stuff. But yeah, like I say, the game introduces that resolve and alarm attributes, which is a nice addition, although they didn't impact as heavily as perhaps they could have done. Side quests allow for lots of exploration rather than needing just to replay just to find that specific key or those essential items. Keep of the Lich Lord features that really strong classic style illustration from David Gallagher, while Keep itself is fairly undeveloped, with a potentially sort of sudden, easy ending that you could just stumble on. The journey and preparation kind of make it all worthwhile, but the ending can be a little bit abrupt. The Keep of the Lich Lord is a well-written book. Plot is not original as such. It's rather sort of kill the baddie story, but in this case it's an army of undead, at his disposal. So however, you are not sort of a random adventurer, but more of a sort of mercenary in this one, who has sort of been contracted to kill Lord Mortis, and essentially in it for the money. So it may not be a noble motive, but it makes a nice change from just being that standard hero. The writing in Lich Lord is detailed, descriptive enough to kind of create a nice convincing atmosphere and environment. The structure of the book is essentially a series of optional side quests en route to Bloodrise Keep, where Lord Mortis resides, and it's kind of testament to how well written this book is. I think Morris and Thompson did a good job together. They are a good team, and it'd be great to see them come together again. Perhaps Scholastic could give them a bell, get them back on the case. Now, none of these kind of diversions score highly in terms of originality as you're making your way through this book, but combined with the quality of all this writing makes finishing this game book a joy rather than a chore. If you do decide to skip all of the diversions and head straight for that Bloodrise Keep, the adventure can feel like I say, a bit short. You'll miss out on a lot of the fun stuff. Lord Mortis, however, is a bit disappointing when you finally meet him. His backstory is a bit limited, and the final encounter with him doesn't really feel like a final showdown, partly due to the underwhelming nature of the final section in general. There are some interesting encounters in Bloodrise Keep, and it sort of sports a multi-path design, but it's quite easy to suddenly end up facing Lord Mortis without any kind of build-up or climax. And whilst a lot of fighting fantasy game books are known for their extreme levels of difficulty. The Keep of the Lich Lord is actually fairly easy to complete. The book throws a few powerful bonuses at you for finishing side missions, successfully, like the opportunity to get your sword sharpened, making all future battles that much easier. So there's lots of hand-holding in this book when it's not really 100% necessary. There are not a great number of tough combats, and most dangerous fights sort of offer optional paths and could be almost avoided altogether. With the final battle with Mortis, if you've headed straight to Bloodrise Keep and taken that quick route, then he will prove a tougher opponent. Otherwise, you should not have too much trouble with him. Overall, this book is well worth the read, and although actually playing it may leave you feel a little bit unsatisfied by the end, it's still worth a go. This book's excessive ease is at odds with the atmosphere created and the general themes. It's very well designed, it's exceptionally well written, and its non-linearity with that no particular true path and relative freedom of movement kind of makes for a refreshing change to the usual, specific route that you sometimes find in these fighting fantasy books. Now, granted, it is a very simple book, but at least there is variety. The new stats are a bit of a failure when they should have driven that plot device, but for once we have a book that can be completed with relatively low stats. And this entry has a lot to offer, and in spite of being a bit easy, this is still a great game book, as well as a really strong piece of fantasy fiction. So I think, all summed up, I'm going to give this book a 7 out of 10 for Keep of the Lich Lord. Right, a shout out. Now, I've mentioned him before. There's a YouTuber out there called Skeleton Crusader, and he's working through PDFs of all these books. And at the time of this review, which is June of 26, I think he's up in the 40s somewhere. So he's not a million miles away from where we are now. And he's just working through them. He does about 30-minute videos at a time. And he's obviously got a set path which he follows. So if you're ever stuck on any books and you want to know the most direct route, he's your man. Check him out, Skeleton Crusader. I'll put his link in the description, obviously. So if you want to look him up, he's well worth looking for. So that's my review. I hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and please put some comments in that section. It's always good to hear from you good people. Maybe share the site out if you think someone might like it. Maybe think about subscribing. The next book is 44, which is Legend of the Shadow Warriors. So catch me in that review.